story of getting back to normal.
Getting back to normal, except Ryanair's normal, typically, is actually well ahead of the normal for 2019. If you look at those passenger figures, Gavin, 15.9 million in June, 15.4 million in May, 14.3 million in April. That's the quarter we're dealing with here. Each of them are quite a distance ahead of what they were doing in 2019. And you can see what's happening is that Ryanair, they kept their aircraft certified, they kept their pilots in place. One of the notes in this morning's press release is that they are fully staffed for the summer, unlike other airlines. They are seizing market share everywhere.
Yeah, they do seem to have come through this recent period without the same level of cancellations as others.
Very, very much. They're the market leaders in 6 different countries. Each of those they've piled on, percentages of 5, 6, 7%. In Ireland, for example, Ryanair would tip, a couple of years ago, it would have been about 44% market share versus 41% for Aer Lingus. It's now 56%. Interestingly enough, the countries that aren't mentioned in the results, one of them is Germany, where they seem to have retreated a little bit from the battlefield, mainly withdrawing from Frankfurt, the main airport there. And they're number 2 in France. They have a small enough share, but they're pretty much roaring ahead to the extent that if you compare them month for month with the airlines around the world, they're now in second place after Southwest and USA. That's probably skewed by the fact that Chinese airlines aren't back in the air yet.
Well, that is still an absolutely unbelievable result. That would be number 2 in the world in terms of who's the most busy. And there's another positive in here, Eoghan, I wanted to ask about, which is the fuel hedging. So that the market price at the moment for jet fuel is $146 a barrel. For this financial year, they've 65% of their fuel locked in at $63 and 15% locked in at $78.
Not only that, but they have locked in a lot of the 2023, 2024 to about 30%. So it does look like they have made the call. Michael O'Leary is quite good at he's a gambler at heart, really. His happy places with his elbow on the railings there at Punchestown or Cheltenham. He has decided that it's going to keep going one direction, and he's increased his hedging for full year 24. It's interesting that the note in the results says that even though they're only buying about 20% of the fuel at current market prices, it will impact on their fares. And the fares, there's a good, interesting shape to those fares, which is continuing something that came in before COVID, where the average fare is down. The average fare in this quarter is about €34, but the ancillary revenue is going up. It's now about €22.50 per passenger. So even though their average fare is 6% down on what it was in 2019, the amount of money they are able to shake us down for our flight has gone up to about €56 a passenger. Any listeners will need no introduction to what's happening. You can't get a bag on board unless you pay the extra for priority boarding.
Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it, I think, in driving that ancillary revenue forward, that change made there a couple of years ago. It's interesting in here, some of the commentary on the relationship with Boeing, which we know has been very fraught. They are implying really that they've not proceeded with a new order of 737 MAXs as of now. They say they've decided to extend the leases on some of the Airbus aircraft in the Laudamotion unit instead of this new order, basically due to what they call Boeing's failure to agree on competitive pricing. Very much
the same megaphone stuff we've heard from Ryanair down the years. They've always huffed and they've puffed, and then they've gone back to Boeing. At its simplest level, it's just that they're always looking for that extra few bob off their aircraft. They've had 73 deliveries, just to give scale of that. That's 2 aircraft or 3 aircraft a week were arriving during COVID. New aircraft, so 73 new aircraft in the fleet this summer, and there's no danger that supply line will slow down because the current order is so large. What they're looking forward to, though, is a better price from Boeing for the next lot. And Airbus, they have that little bit of leverage because they bought into Lauda, and Lauda is an Airbus airline, and they've made a big deal out of their Airbus facilities, for example, in North Dublin, where they service the aircraft. The reality is their Airbus orders are small beer compared with Boeing. One gets the impression they're going to keep going back to Boeing. It's just that when they keep going back to them, they want the price not to be taken for granted.
It is kind of amusing that they have this little lever and how they can say, oh, Airbus is great, happy to take some more, to do some more with them, but Boeing, no, not so much. In terms of the outlook, Owen, they are quite cautious really in what is overall a very positive statement, I think, but they're cautious on the outlook. They say there are signs of pent-up demand, but people are making bookings close to the point of departure. People seem to be sort of playing it by ear.
Wrecking everyone. That's wrecking everyone's head in aviation and in travel. The lead-in price a couple of years ago would be about lead-in time would be about 6 weeks. People committed with 6 weeks to go. They're committing at less than 2 weeks to go. Now, the fare situation during the summer has pushed that out a little bit because prices for August, as listeners will need no introduction to, very, very high. But the lead-in time, it makes it very, very difficult to plan your network, frequencies, all of that sort of thing. They'd like it to be a little bit further out. And that may be part of the fare policy, because one of the things having a low average fare and then making your money out of ancillary does is it plants you at the top of the internet search engine with a very low fare. And they're trying to stimulate all the time. They had a flash sale last week for September, October, trying to make a decision what the appetite for travel was. And there's absolutely no doubt everybody was very scared by Omicron in December, which pushed back the progress that the return to flying after COVID, and scared by the war, which didn't cause cancellations but slowed down bookings. That's why July prices dropped a little bit. And as the report this morning says, we don't know what the next war or Omicron is. It's very, very volatile out there.
They're not giving any guidance, any financial guidance for the current financial year as of yet. Okay, overall then, Owen, sum it all up for me in a nutshell. What's your assessment of how things are looking for these guys?
The history of Ryanair is never waste a good crisis. During the 9/11, they moved to be one of the biggest airlines in Europe, buying a lot of low-cost aircraft. During the global financial recession, they nearly doubled their numbers. The history of COVID has been that they've made a market grab across 6 major European markets where they're now the leader. Another 6, they're now in second place. They saw it as an opportunity for growth, and what's more astonishing, they were able to deliver on that.
Excellent stuff, Owen. We'll leave it there. That's
always a great pleasure, Gavin.